Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, you're going to be asking me that about 30 times, give or take, this week. So let's have you tell us how it's going.
What you need, Tom, is just get a spreadsheet of answers ready and then just refer to the spreadsheet. And you can be, I'm doing well, I'm doing fine, I'm doing okay, not so great. Got a little tummy aches, just answers like that. And then you can just delete them from the cell, individual cell, or gray them out. I like to gray things out as you've accomplished that task. That's what I would do, but we are not the same person. Even though sometimes our scores would indicate otherwise. But no, Tom, we are here for some listener questions. It's been a while since we've done a listener question show. This week is worthy of such a thing. Generally, a lot of times listener question shows we do because we don't want to come up with any ideas of what to do. That is not the case this week. We've come up with a bunch of stuff, but we also would like to hear from the people. And we'll even have a listener question show from Michigan, from questions from Michigan fans later in the week. If you are a Michigan fan and you're watching this one, go ahead and throw your questions in the comments of this YouTube video, and we may be able to get to them, provided they're legible. Boom! All right. No. Let's get the show started.
Let's get the show started. Is this a show with questions from Michigan fans? Well, I will just tell you the first one is from a Twitter user with the handle @BuckMichigan. So probably not. This is probably an Ohio State listener show. This is 3 questions in one. We will take them one at a time. Tony, the forecast for this weekend, it's a little chilly, maybe a little precipitation, not exactly the Snow Bowl by any means, but does rain or snow in the forecast potentially limit Carnell Tate's participation in the game if it is a leg issue, or does it limit Ohio State's ability to throw?
I think you have to be concerned about footing and just, it doesn't need to be a bunch of snow. It just needs to be wet, and rain would be the same concern where the ground is wet. And so now you've got some issues, some concerns about footing. And if you've got a rumored leg injury, not a reported leg injury, a rumored injury to your lower leg, certainly you're going to want your best footing. And if you don't have it and you tweak something, I think that's a legitimate concern. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, or I don't think it would limit his participation. Like, they're not going to look at it and be like, you know what, let's just err on the side of caution. If he can go, he's going to go.
Yeah, if he can go, he's going to go. It might maybe change the can he go calculus slightly, maybe, where if it's a fast, clean, dry track, sunny day, warm day, maybe, I don't even know how are we grading the recovery. He's up to a B-, and then he would go normally. But if it is a wet, slippery field, maybe they want to make sure he's at least a B to go, something like that.
It's all part of the calculus.
Yeah, this is just one of the things. It's one of the elements, one of the factors that goes into this decision. I don't think it's going to be, well, if it's raining, or it's snowing, or if it's cold, he absolutely won't go. I don't think I don't think it's be like that. I just think it's something that they sort of factor into the decision. But, as Ryan Day said, ultimately the decision is up to the player. Unless the doctors officially rule someone out, the decision is ultimately up to the player. So, I don't think a little bit of snow is going to keep him out if he would otherwise have played if it was, a dry field. I don't expect that to be the case, especially this week. We've seen that be the case in the past. I don't think I'm expecting that to be the case this week. If he doesn't play, it's probably something else other than the.
Yeah. Right. And we have seen Ryan Day mention before, like, well, we didn't like the footing, so we held somebody out. Like, that's happened before. I don't know that it would happen in this one, given how much time off he's been given to get right. But yeah, it's all part of the consideration. What's too much though? What is too much snow at for a bad leg of some sort, or maybe not.
Yeah, the forecast the last time I saw it was kind of snow flurries. This was not.
Yeah.
You're going to get 6 inches of snow, and they're going to need to bring out the snow plow like the old New England Patriots game. Like this is probably not going to be the field as a sheet of ice by any means. So we'll see on that. Does that impact Ohio State's ability to throw? And when I hear weather impacting someone's ability to throw, the first thing I look at is wind, and it doesn't. It's going to be chilly, and there's maybe going to be some precipitation, but I don't think it's going to be. It does not look like it's going to be super windy now. Having lived in the greater Detroit area for a number of years, I can tell you the forecast can change from day to day as things change up in that area, because there's a lot of lake effect stuff that can impact the weather up there, and there's some kind of an Arctic something or other going on that could impact things as well. So, but I don't look at that forecast and go, well, Ohio State's just going to have to run it because Julian Sayin has a strong enough arm that I don't think whatever it is, 5-10 mile an hour wind is going to make a huge impact on him.
No, they've played through some rain this year and been fine. You've experienced that. I've seen it. I've seen it up close and personal from the press box. I've seen the rain falling down. Rain, I think, is a bigger impact than snow, depending on how it's the snow with the wind. It's the wind aspect of it more than the snow. So I know Michigan fans are excited. 30 degrees, possible snow, and I don't really see that being much of an issue because both teams are going to have to deal with whatever the weather is. And I think the bigger issue for Ohio State is who is Julian Sayin throwing to in that snow, in those flurries, in that cold. I think that's a much bigger issue than the temperature or the weather.
Yeah, if I'm hedging my score prediction at all this week, it is going to center around participation and not precipitation. So next one was, will a holding penalty finally be called on an offensive line against the Ohio State defense? Now, Tony, I know this is something that you have tracked over the years to the amusement and or consternation, depending of whether you're talking about the Ohio State fan base or opposing fan bases. Has an offensive line been called for holding against the Ohio State defensive line? I think it's happened, I can think, at least once this year, right?
Yeah, I think a couple of times so far this year. I think it happened maybe in the middle of the season, so there's no reason to track it at that point because, well, it's not a season-long thing any longer. What I can tell you is Michigan and Ohio State are right next to each other in terms of most penalized, in terms of how often they're penalized. Michigan is 8th in the Big Ten at 4.3 penalties per game. Ohio State is 9th in the Big Ten at 4.4 penalties per game. Ohio State has committed 48 penalties this season, or have had 48 penalties accepted. Michigan has had 47 penalties accepted. Will there be a Michigan offensive lineman called for holding? Perhaps, because of Bryce Underwood likes to break out and scramble, and you might see an offensive lineman try to give him a little bit of time to get out. But I would say, if I'm going to say over under 0.5 offensive line holding calls against Ohio State's defensive line, I'm probably going to take the under.
Yeah, I mean, under is probably the safe bet. You just generally, I would guess, you see less than one per game on average. So, in general, period, full stop, less than one holding call on average per game. So yeah, I think under there is probably the safe bet. I don't know that I would immediately chalk that up to an immense Big Ten conspiracy against the Ohio State defensive line. I mean, possibly. I don't know. Do you hear Zombie Nation? No? Okay, anyway, doesn't matter. No, it's I think we're at the point where I always think back when I think about officiating in the Ohio State-Michigan game. I think about the 1999 Ohio State-Michigan game, and I think I'm going to do this off the top of my head. I think Michigan was called for one penalty for 5 yards, and Ohio State was called for something like 11 for 105 yards or something like that. This is the early days of the internet, so you did not have the microblogging experience. People would lose their minds. The Fogo de Chao next to the Big Ten headquarters would get stormed like the Bastille if that happened. So, I don't think you're going to see. We have not seen like a real ref show game this year. Like, there have been missed calls here and there. The officiating has been decent this year. It really has not been bad. You're always going to have people who are ticked off at calls. Greg Schiano was really ticked off at a call that didn't get made during last week's Ohio State-Rutgers game. But I feel like the officiating's been decent, and it's been fairly consistent where they're not calling holding on opposing offensive lines against Ohio State's defensive line, but they're also not calling a ton of holding on Ohio State's offensive line. So, if it's getting called the same way, both directions, that's fine. As long as it's not everything's a flag. Like we haven't seen the everything's a flag game. Like it feels like the Big Ten calls fewer penalties than a lot of other leagues, which to me, fine, great. Like if it's egregious, sure, but you can just let him play. And it feels like the Big Ten officials did a pretty good job of that this year.
I would argue that if you're not going to call holding, that benefits Ohio State more than it benefits Michigan over the course of the game, because I keep saying if you can just protect Julian Sayin, you're probably going to win. Mm-hmm. And if you're allowed to hold or hold within reason and protect Julian Sayin and give him time to throw, I like Ohio State's chances of completing passes more than I like Michigan's chances of completing passes. So if holding is legal, then I think Ohio State fans should accept that. Now, will they? No. But they should.
The Purge 4, offensive line. Just all holding is legal this week. Yeah, we'll see how the Big Ten officials will approach that. Next one from @Chip Roush. What's your prediction for Max Clare and other tight end personnel for catches and yards if 0, 1, or both of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate play in the game?
We've watched Michigan this year, and there are times where we do our Michigan Monday podcast every week. And we're like, an opposing tight end was successful, had some pretty good snaps and made some yards. This week against Maryland, we saw a tight end that could have been successful, but he dropped too many passes. And we'll talk about that in another show. Mm-hmm. But I went through and looked, Tom, at all of like the starting tight ends that Michigan has played this year. And let's see, including both of USC's tight ends, because they play two quite a bit, and so does Michigan State. But basically, of 12 of the 12 games, there were 4 guys who set a season high in receptions. There were 3 guys who set a season high in yards. There were 3 guys who set a season high in touchdowns. And you've got like right out of the gate against New Mexico, the tight end was 10 catches, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. Right after that, Oklahoma, their starter, 5 for 69. Then 2 weeks later, Nebraska, 7 for 60. You had USC's 2 guys, both with 2 for 40 plus. Then even the Northwestern, 4 for 81. This past week against Maryland, 3 for 19, but a touchdown, and also there were some drops and some other opportunities there. So none of those teams had Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate playing for them, and some of them have some pretty good tight ends like Ohio State will. So I think Max Clare's numbers could be good regardless of however many, because the focus, if Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are playing, and I'm going to assume Jeremiah Smith is, and I'm going to assume Carnell Tate is right now, if they both play, I think there's a ton of opportunity for Max Clare because the attention won't be on him. However, I also think if both of those guys are playing, one of them is going to be in the middle of the field quite a bit, trying to find some matchup problems, create matchup problems. So then that would eliminate a little bit of Max Clare. But I think you could see 6, 8, 9 catches. If they're not playing, I'd say 8 or 9 catches. If one of them is playing, I'd say 5 or 6. If both of them are playing, I'd say 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good ballpark. I also wonder, we talked earlier about the sort of spectrum of factors that are going into the decision. And, is there a scenario where Carnell Tate's playing, but Carnell Tate's not 100%, and Carnell Tate's a little bit more of a decoy? And then you're sort of pulling maybe you're pulling a safety away from the middle of the field, but you're also, and so he's playing, but then he's really playing to open some things up in the middle of the field, which, does that turn into the Brandon Innes show? Does that turn into the Max Clare show? I also don't think Wink Martindale's a dummy. So Wink Martindale will probably at some point, if Carnell Tate is just out there and just sort of jogging and pull, that probably only works so long. But I think that's one possible scenario. As you said, I'm expecting Jeremiah Smith to play. Carnell Tate's a little bit more of a question mark, I think, right now. But if he can go, I would assume he's going to go. It's just a matter of will he be? I don't think that they know whether he's going to go yet. I don't think they have I don't think they're just being cagey. I think we'll see how the week goes, basically. So but I think the numbers you throw out broadly are probably good, and that's not just for Claire. That's probably tight ends on the whole. So you get one to Will Kesmerick, you get one to Bennett Christian, whoever it is. 8 catches for if neither of those guys are playing, and the tight ends have 8 catches for 105 yards. That sounds about right, and that's probably like a winning number for Ohio State if they can do that much in the passing game just with the tight ends without Tate and without Jeremiah Smith. And if it's if you've got just Jeremiah Smith, six catches for 80 yards, maybe something like that for the tight ends. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, and against Rutgers, the tight ends had 9 for 129, and I'd say Rutgers and Michigan, very similar defenses on the whole, as you would certainly agree, Tom. Don't even bother disagreeing. The people will hear you agree.
The views of Tony Gerdeman do not represent yada, yada, yada. Yes.
Just having some fun. Relax, everybody.
This is a week when everyone takes everything in exactly the fun and loose spirit that it is intended. So, all right, the last one for this show, at David Hoosier 1. Tony, you're the offensive coordinator. Tom is the defensive coordinator. How are you attacking Michigan?
We've seen this Michigan defense be susceptible to the downfield passing. And I will reference the Maryland game. There's some successful downfield routes, but not very many successful downfield passes.
Same for the Northwestern game.
Yeah. So I am attacking the Michigan defense downfield, and if that means keeping somebody else in to block, whether that's a back, whether it's another tight end, but I'm attacking with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith down the field. I'm going to move one of those guys into the slot and see if the corners follow, or if I get a matchup against TJ Metcalf in a nickel and whatever safety might be over top. I'm going to take that all day long. I'm going to feel good about throwing the ball downfield in cover 2 where maybe the safety doesn't get over in time. And so we've seen this Michigan defense get attacked down the field, and they've gotten away with it over the course of the season. If you can protect Julian Sayin, go ahead and see what happens downfield and take your chances, because there have been much lesser receivers having much more success or potential success against Zeke Berry and Jair Hill. We'll talk about it on the Michigan Monday show. Mm-hmm. But and it's not just this past week. It's every week I'm writing down Jair Hill beaten, and every week he's gotten a receiver has gotten past him. And yeah, cornerback is hard. We all understand that. If Ohio State hits those, game over. And I haven't even talked about the run, but I do, obviously, yes, you need to run. I think Bo Jackson could have a good day, but Michigan's defense is, for whatever reason, they don't give up a lot of yards, and for much of that reason is because their defense is pretty good. But if I'm attacking them, I'm protecting Julian Sayin the best I can, and I'm throwing downfield.
Yeah, and as the defensive coordinator, I'm just going to poke my head into the offensive staff meeting and say 2 things. Number 1, I would put C.J. Donaldson in there a whole bunch at running back in terms of pass pro. I would really explore the space with C.J. Donaldson in terms of blitz pickup and all that kind of stuff, because he seems like your surest bet there. The other thing is, find number 1 on the field, Jayshon Barham, and you run directly at him. You tell Austin Sierreveld, you drive his butt into the dirt 30 times. You just pound him and pound him and pound him when in the run game. That's where you run the ball. You find number 1 and you run the ball at him. That's it. Period. Full stop. Run it at him. All right. So now I'll put on my defensive coordinator hat. You stay out of my room, Buster. This is a defensive meeting. You stay out. Defensively, I'm assuming I'm going to take Sharon Moore at his word that Jordan Marshall was ready to go and could have played against Maryland and will be ready to go against Ohio State. So we're going to predicate our whole game plan on that. I think Michigan is very obviously going to try to run the ball. I think Michigan is going to. I think this is going to be a very, all the words that you used to say in the 1990s about what a successful offense was. Tony, we got to establish the run, and then that'll set up the play action pass over the top. That is fully what I'm expecting from Michigan. I think you're going to see some shots downfield to Andrew Marsh. We have seen Bryce Underwood look intermittently good, but not incredible. And I don't think that Michigan has, outside of Andrew Marsh, I don't think Michigan has any great wide receivers on this team. I think Donovan McCulley's fine. The tight ends this year are fine. The loss of Max Bredesen probably hurts them in the run game a decent amount. If I'm the Ohio State defensive coordinator, I'm saying, you go ahead and beat me with the pass. Are you going to be rushing the pass? Are you going to be rushing the quarterback like crazy? Nope. We are going to rush with 4. We are going to cage the quarterback. We are going to be real patient. We're going to have a spy so you don't get out there. But then, as we've seen, being the spy doesn't mean you just have to sit back there and just, stand 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and just go, okay, well, you can't run here. Like, you can be a little bit active. And Ohio State has, I think, Bryce Underwood's a good athlete. I think Arvell Reese can run Bryce Underwood down. I think Sonny Styles can run Bryce Underwood down. I think that they can go get him at some point. But my game plan is stop the run. Do not let, I think you're going to see a lot of the penny front. You've seen a lot of penny front from Ohio State this year. I think you're going to see a lot of penny front from Ohio State on Saturday. And I think the game plan is make Bryce Underwood sit in the pocket and make good decisions and make good throws. And there's going to be a lot of disguise of coverages, pre-snap to post-snap. You're going to, I think you're trying to confuse him. And I think you are trying to make him throw the ball to beat you. I think that's what the approach is going to be.
Knock, knock, knock. Can I just...
No, I said get out.
All right, that'll do it.
Fine. Wait, is this DoorDash? Come on in.
I do think we saw this past week tight ends down the seam were effective for Michigan, so that's something that you throw over the linebackers with that. I think it's going to be interesting to watch Caleb Downs from down to down, from pre-snap to post-snap, to see where he starts to where he goes. Wrap up. That's really with Jordan Marshall, Bryson Cusdahl. Like, that dude runs hard, and Marshall runs hard. You got to wrap those guys up. That's. I'm not telling any secrets there. With the RPO, I think Northwestern did a very good job of kind of baiting Bryce Underwood a little bit, sneaking up and then dropping back and intercepting one and tipping another. So it'll be interesting to see how the Ohio State defense deals with that, because it's a nice, easy read. It's one read. You don't have to worry about all of these, necessarily a bunch of these changing pictures. So can they get into those situations? How does Ohio State deal with that, and how does Ohio State deal with the tight ends? Because it's just kind of a tough matchup for anybody when you've got decent tight ends and you're more worried about stopping the run. So if there is no Jordan Marshall, you don't have to worry as much. But what we saw from Bryson Cusdahl was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
against Maryland.
Well, don't worry. We have another show coming up about that. That'll be the next show in the feed. That'll be the Michigan Monday show. So you'll hear all about Bryson Cusdahl there.
So there you go. That's how we would attack Michigan. Doesn't mean that's how you would have to do it, or how Ohio State would have to do it. If they want to win. But so if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you have not yet done so. Hit the bell to be notified. As you guys are already finding out, we're dropping a bunch of content. We're trying to get as much to you before Thursday as possible. And then don't worry, there's going to be plenty spread out over the course of this week as well. But you're seeing a bunch of shows from us because there's a bunch to talk about. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.